Welcome to our City Year, My Year in Service panel. My name is Alyssa Krutov. Would love to welcome everyone here today to our panel. So the purpose of today's panel is for all of you to hear directly from our AmeriCorps members. So as you are applying to our program, recently accepted to the program, really hearing from the folks that are doing the work that you will be doing in the future as you prepare to submit that interview with our deadline tomorrow, or step into the interview or start to transition into your service. While you're on the call, please stay on mute. If we hear any background noise, I will be able to mute you as well. In your registration and your RSVP for the event, a lot of you shared some really excellent questions. We will be using those for a lot of our questions, and at the end, we will also open it up for questions. If you have any questions as we move through, feel free to chat those in the chat box, and then myself or one of my colleagues will be able to get to those. If you have any urgent questions, feel free to just chime in at any time. If there's nothing urgent, please hold till the end. So we're going to go through a few areas. We're going to go through some background information about our AmeriCorps members, how they got here, their transition, their service, and their plans for the future. So quickly, we'll just go around and I'll ask each of our AmeriCorps members to introduce themselves. Anyone can start. We'll start with you, Chloe.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name's Chloe. I serve in City Year, Washington, D.C. I'm a second-year AmeriCorps member, so this is the second year I've been with City Year. My first year, I was in a 10th grade world history classroom, so I was with the old students, as we like to call them in D.C., and I graduated from the University of Oregon in political science, and I moved to Washington, D.C. for City Year.
I can go next. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Jones. I'm a first-year AmeriCorps member serving in Philadelphia. I work with 9th graders. I graduated from Albright College, and I received a bachelor's degree in accounting.
My name is Melissa. I am a team leader at City Year Philadelphia. My first year I served Kensington High School in North Philadelphia, working with the 9th grade, and this year I lead a team of 13 at another Kensington High School in North Philadelphia. I went to Drexel University and I studied elementary education and general studies.
And Kelsey.
Hey everybody, I'm Kelsey Lambert. I am originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico, but I went to Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, and then moved to Washington, D.C. To do City Year Washington, D.C., and now I serve at John Hayden Johnson Middle School in an 8th grade science class.
Thank you. So some of you shared what you studied in school. Does anyone want to share what they studied as an undergrad?
I'll go again just because I know I didn't mention mine. I studied business management. I have an undergrad degree in business management, so the bulk of my studies were all about finances and accounting, like Jeff, but I studied more human resources and people management as well. That was like pretty much my concentration while in college and under the business school, and that's what I graduated with.
So as you can see, there's a diverse backgrounds of education. Melissa, how did you hear about City Year?
I heard about City Year through multiple channels. Growing up in Philadelphia, I kind of always saw them around. Going to school in Philadelphia, like I went to Drexel, there was a few people that actually joined City Year and were able to go to different sites. There's some people that are friends of mine that are still in City Year today, and I also wanted to learn more about supporting students outside of the classroom, having gone through general education studies. and I wanted to learn more about nonprofits. So this seemed like a great opportunity for me to kind of get all of those and wrapped up into one organization.
Anyone else want to share how they heard about City Year?
I can go. Also, as Melissa stated, I seen City Year growing up when I was younger, and always wanted to know, what it entails. I professionally heard about City Year through a career fair that was held at my college, and I agreed with, giving back to the students, and that's really what got my foot in the door, knowing that City Year was, wanted to help students and the urban community.
So Chloe, what made you choose City Year, and how did you decide what site to apply to?
Yeah, so I found out about City Year through a couple of classmates at University of Oregon who did City Year when they were 18, so right before they went to college. And so I started looking into it, and I was really excited about the opportunity to work with students. I had done some outreach when I was in college, specifically with high school students, and I really enjoyed that process and that time. And for more of like the selfish reason too, I wasn't ready to go off and do a career yet. I was stuck between law school or going into maybe like a legal assistant field. And I really wanted time to develop professional skills before I just kind of put my foot into the door into a different organization. And so City Year sounded like a perfect way to do that and to also build a community in a city I always wanted to live in. So being a political science major, Washington, D.C. is always kind of the big draw, especially if you're from the West Coast. It feels like a foreign land that you don't really ever get to go to. So I knew that D.C. was the number one site because I wanted to be near politics and near government work. And so it was a pretty easy decision for me.
So this one will open up to anyone. What do you know now that you wish you would have known before you applied or started your service? If you can think of one, Kelsey.
I have one. One of the things that I wish someone had actually told me is actually just how long your days can be. Obviously, for many people, it's your first job, especially right out of college. Apologize for my voice. But there are days in City Year where your day is more than 10 hours, and I just if I could wish that I could tell myself back in July what to prepare for, it would definitely be to know that I'm going to have to do that more frequently than you might think. Just putting in sometimes those long hours is definitely something that I wish I had known more about.
Anyone else? Something they wish they would have known? Well, we will think as we continue moving forward. If you think of anything, you can share them. So Melissa and Jeff, you both stayed in the city that you were in. Chloe and Kelsey, can you talk a little bit about your transition to a new city?
Yeah, I can start with that. It definitely was a transition. I was moving away. All of my family is from Portland, Oregon, so I was moving to a city where I knew no one. So City Year really became my family and became my resource over here. I would say it was really smooth though. The best part about City Year, in my opinion, is it is a family and it is a community. And if you are vulnerable and willing to make connections and relationships, it'll go really far. And so I think it was a pretty smooth transition. The biggest thing for me was learning how to build a network outside of City Year as well. And I'm sure we'll get to this a little bit later, but having that work-life balance is really important when it comes to City Year and knowing when to self-care. So that was probably one of the bigger transitions is most of my friends now and the people I talk to, I also work with. So knowing how to build relationships outside of City
Much like Chloe, my transition was luckily pretty smooth. I'd been familiar with the East Coast, being from the Southwest. I had been on the East Coast for the 4 previous years in college, just about 3 hours south, which is still drastically different than Washington, D.C. is. But I consider myself blessed because I have family kind of in this area, at least in the Northern Virginia part, that, made it easy, and fortunate enough for me, I had some of the resources to help me move in and transition into the city. But also much like Chloe, like the transition, I guess was more easy than not because I definitely found community and family with the new people I was working with. Because I was extremely nervous, when you're kind of taken away from your college atmosphere and your college friends, kind of reacclimating to something new. City Year at our site did a very great job of really getting everybody in and really acclimated with each other to then build, some really great friendships. So while it was difficult at times, and there were times at the start where it was rocky, I consider it, it was very easy and a very good transition for myself.
What were some of the things that all of you did before starting your term of service to get yourselves ready? Either resources we provided as an organization or those that you kind of did for yourselves.
I'll speak real. One thing that I started to do was I just wanted to establish a routine. In college, I was the dude that went to bed at 3 a.m. and woke up at 12. You can't do that anymore. Or if you want to go to bed at 3 a.m., just prepare for a long day. So one of the things that I started doing, especially as I started getting closer to BTA and our training, was I just started going to bed at 10 every day and waking up at 7. And granted, that wasn't quite the routine I have now, but it still really helped me kind of transition into that daily routine of, now I wake up at 5, but, having that routine prior, I think definitely helped me substantially.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. I definitely agree with Kelsey. As far as like just having getting accustomed to waking up earlier than usual. Me myself, I'm not a morning person, so I know I had to start getting the rhythm of waking up before 7 o'clock. So that was one of the things I did to prepare for City Year. Also, I continue to, I guess you could say, just be open to new things. I know new things is coming my way with joining City Year, so I just got into that mindset where I'm just absorbing all the information I can.
So Melissa, can you share with us how you feel that City Year's training helped you prepare for your year of service? I know Kelsey just referred to BTA, which is Basic Training Academy. So how do you feel that helped you and what was it like?
For me, I think they tried to be as thorough as they could. They tried to answer as many questions as they could. One way that I tried to prepare is I tried to write out a list of questions that I had about the organization going into it, so that as the basic training went along, I kind of checked off which questions were answered, and by the end figured out which questions that I still had, so that I could figure out who to go to and who who to contact my team leader or my impact manager or even staff members in the school. They, like I said, they try to be as thorough as possible because they do understand that there are people that are not coming from an education background. So I like the fact that they try to break down as much as possible what you're going to be doing on a daily basis when it comes to your scheduling, the resources they give you to use, how to use them, what time of the year, and things like that.
This is for anyone. What would you say, kind of transitioning into the city and transitioning for those of you who stayed in the city that you were in already? What was that transition like from going from either a college student into the role of an AmeriCorps member or moving into a new city? Easy, hard, manageable? I'd do it again tomorrow.
I can go. So I think it kind of depends on the type of person you are too. So I had a pretty easy transition, but that's because I love bigger cities and I love crowds and I love being around people. I'm a very extroverted person. And I had come from a college town that was super small, and so I was ready to get out. Um, but I have a roommate right now who's also in City Year who's very introverted. She likes her alone time. And so knowing when you go in, like the type of person you are and what environment suits your personality is really important. Because I think Basic Training Academy, BTA, can be very like extroverted focus in the sense of like you're meeting all these people, you're learning about what school you'll be in, and it can be very overwhelming, even for the most outgoing of us in the group. So, yes, it was like an easy transition to be in a city, but like also know to take time for yourself and know that everyone is overwhelmed the first 2 or 3 weeks because a lot of people going into City Year haven't worked in a school environment. I had never worked with specifically in a school. I'm not planning on being a teacher. So it can be very overwhelming when you're first put into that environment and really learning how to teach students and tutor to your best ability. So take time for yourself and know that everyone is going through the same struggle.
I can talk about that as well. So transitioning from college and going to city here. So I was born, and that's where I'm serving at as well. So it wasn't that bit of a drastic change as far as like my scenery, but the things that I did on a day-to-day basis definitely changed. I identify as an introvert, so being open to interacting with other people on a daily basis in a positive manner, which was something I look forward to. I felt like City Year definitely gave me that platform to express myself and not and feel supported. I feel like City Year offered a lot of support for people who transitioning from any type of background and joining their organization, which is awesome. And yeah, for me, basically, I wouldn't say it was hard. I definitely say like it was moderately challenging. But I at the end of the day, I felt like it was worth it.
So we have a question from one of our participants from Kesha, who wants to know a little bit more about housing. So does anyone want to share where they're currently living, if they're living with their AmeriCorps members, and how that housing process kind of worked for you?
I can also talk. It's funny because I'm still living with my parents and I grew up in Philadelphia, but um, so I know Facebook will like create a group for all like the incoming core members, and they'll connect people who's also joining City Year for their first year and like try to find housing as well. Yeah, so basically it was like, and for my understanding, it was like basically over social media, where just the incoming core members would contact other core members via Facebook, and try to link up and make plans to find housing wherever they're going to be working at.
I can talk about DC. Um, so for Washington, D.C., it's an expensive city, so it definitely can be hard to find housing. And like Jeff said, the best place to look is Facebook. So if you have a Facebook group that you're in for the incoming City Year, really reach out to people. Almost, at least at the Washington, D.C. site, I would say about 75% of the people coming are new to the area. So they're looking for roommates as well. Like I said, the city can be really expensive, so you're most likely going to have roommates, multiple probably. A lot of people live in Maryland and Virginia and commute in because it's cheaper. I live out in Silver Spring, Maryland, and there's a really big housing complex out there called Summit Hills Apartments, and you'll probably see advertisements for them on the City Year page. And it's a great way. It's a pretty cheaper, not cheap, I should not say cheap, but it's a cheaper place to live. And most people will either get a 3-bedroom apartment for 3 people, or get a 3-bedroom apartment and have 4 people in it, and like use the dining room as a room as well. So keep that in mind. DC can be a very expensive city, but you can make it work on your stipend.
Anyone else want to share about housing?
I'll share one thing, and I can't, again, I'm like Jeff in a sense that I can't contribute a lot because I stay with family. I was fortunate enough to have family that stayed relatively close, so I commute in every day into DC. Um, but I will say, like, depending on where your site is, um, just be open to because I'm looking for housing again, and I guess just be open to living with people. I know I've heard the term introvert, extrovert a lot. You're gonna at this stage and with the amount of stipend money that you get, regardless of where you live, you're gonna have to have roommates and just be open and just look for them because there are other people that need those too. But also, as far as a specific site, DC, you're gonna have your best luck looking at the end of the metro lines. I'm at the very end of the yellow line. I'm at the Huntington stop. I take the metro all the way to the very end when it stops, and then I go home. You're gonna find your best luck definitely for the affordable options outside of the city. While there are definite options inside, they're just harder to find.
And I think using the resources you have, so if you folks share that they're living with family, use those resources. If you have them, utilize them. You are living on a stipend, and anything you can do to make that stipend stretch is reasonable. And you may be sharing rooms or sharing with others, but you're working long hours. So take that as a perk that you're not home that much. And so, sometimes that's okay, and it's part of the process. So we're going to move into our actual service. So can anyone share what their day-to-day looks like as an AmeriCorps member? Or what the general City or AmeriCorps member day-to-day looks like?
I can start with that. So day to day, I wake up 5:30. I leave out of my house at 6:09. Come to the house. We go to Kensington Health Science Academy, which is located in Kensington. And we have first circle. Sometimes we might morning greet, which is we stand outside of the school and greet students as they come in, give them that extra boost of energy to get them prepared for school. Then I transition into my first period, and I work in physical science class along with history class as well. So the first period, I greet students. I might do 1 to 2 pull-out interventions, which is when I bring a student down to City Year office and teach them a specific lesson based on their weaknesses that I've noticed throughout the year, or uh, the weaknesses that they took in another school year. After that, I have lunch prep, and the end of the day, we're either after school programs, so we're leading after school programs. Currently, I'm a part of the robotics club, so I'm working with students in robotics, and that's over around 4:20. And then it's final circle, which is just all the core members that's working at a specific school, huddled up and talk about announcements that everyone needs to know leading into the next day. And we also share joys. So we share joys, appreciations, and struggles that happen throughout the day, just to going back on that support that City Year offers. And I'm on my way home and preparing for the next day.
I'll go next.
Yep,
Oh,
go ahead,
no, I
Kelsey.
was just gonna say one of the things that I noticed is that Jeff. I just wanted to mention a brief kind of difference in mine and Jeff's day. Um, my day is relatively similar. I think it's just because we kind of work in secondary. I'm in eighth grade and middle school. But one of the key differences that what Jeff has that I don't have is he's allowed to pull out students. My school, and one of the things that everybody that you'll eventually notice when you're put in your school is every school is vastly different. My school happens to be a push-in school, so getting the freedom to actually pull students out of class, while we are allowed to do it for some things, it's not a daily routine for us. So I actually work directly in classroom, and I lead a station in my science class that is focus based, but is directly related to what my teacher's lesson is. And I work directly in the classroom, leading a station of about 4 to 5 students. I don't teach a whole class, but I am allowed to pull like a focus group of 4 or 5 to the side. And I work with them for that day, and then that switches and that rotates. Just a little difference in mine is I'm not allowed to pull out as much.
So what, throw this over to Melissa or Chloe. What would you say has been your most successful moment while serving with City Year?
I can touch on that. I would say the end of the school year. I know that sounds a little bit bad, but not to say that I'm glad that I'm leaving or that's the end of the year, but I think that was the most impactful part of my year because I got to see the progress of my students throughout the entire school year, and they got to see that as well. So like when you get to the last marking period for their report cards, they're getting those like end of the year conversations with their teachers. I got a chance to see their reactions when they like saw the progress that they made throughout that year and like the milestones that they went through and like even talk about some of the challenges they had at the beginning of the year and like reflect on like how much they've changed throughout that year and like seeing like how empowered they became by like learning that information about themselves and what they were able to do throughout that school year. It was just like really amazing.
Anyone else want to share a successful moment so far this year or over your service with City Year? If not, you can always come back to it. But who wants to share what their most challenging moment has been so far? Not everyone at once.
Listen, I can share a successful moment before I share the challenging moment.
Good.
One of the successful moments is just like based towards my service year. That was the question for you, was it?
You can go whichever you want.
All right, that's fine. Just well, like going into City Year, I definitely wasn't well aware of what exactly I was going to be doing. I did have a general sense, but City Year helped me develop leadership skills, and they give you like a platform to host certain events after school or during school. And one of the events that me and another core member on my team created and led of the other core members on our team was Math Jeopardy. And as far as me, I always expect the worst so I can be prepared for that. So going in and like trying to cover all my bases and be like truly my first time actually planning and leading an event. I was nervous, and City Year supported me and they guided me through it, and it turned out to be a great event. The students enjoyed it a lot, and just seeing that this vision that you have for a particular event or for the expectations of others, and just seeing how I don't know, good it can turn out, and seeing the results of the work that you put in and seeing how it pays off. I definitely can say that was like one of the successful moments of my service year, along with many others.
I can go just for some challenges. Um I think one of the things that's challenging for me is just sometimes things don't always go according to your plan. Uh and I think that's a challenging thing, right? Is no matter sometimes you can try and you can do all this stuff and you know you can coach, you can do things, and then sometimes it still doesn't work out. Um, I mean, I wish I want to bring some specifics. It just sometimes, you can coach a student on behavior and you can tell them to the cows come home, and then they still get in trouble. I think that's very challenging because sometimes you're like, oh, you can almost want to give up and say, what's the point? But I think when you are able, and this comes back to the successes, when that day comes, and it has and it will, where they realize what you told them and correct themselves and don't do what you told them, or don't do what they were doing and actually respond to your correction, and they make that change. That's the most rewarding thing, but it can be very challenging to get to that point. But once you get there, it's always, it makes you smile and is very, very, very rewarding.
I can add something to what Kelsey was saying too. Just overall, City Year is not a job with instant gratification. You should not come in thinking the day you walk in that you're just gonna be that change agent that you want to be. And that's a bad attitude to have coming into City Year. You're not here to save any child. You're not here to be that person that made the whole difference, because there's a whole community around our kids that are there to make a difference in kids' lives. And you're just one piece of the puzzle that's coming in. And oftentimes you're an outsider. So you're coming in not knowing everyone's history in that community, and already the rules and the ideas that are being bounced around. So come in with an attitude knowing that you're just one tiny piece of the puzzle, and you do make a difference, but you're not the only person there that's working for your kids. And know that you're in it for the long run. And sometimes you may never see the things that your team or your fellow partner teachers that you work with, like the change you're making in a student. But know that your presence matters and that consistency really matters. And come in knowing that you're not going to see that instant gratification. There are days where you get to paint schools and make murals, and those are great days for instant gratification. But know that it's a very long road, and that sometimes you may not even see the benefits at the end of your service year, but you did make a difference.
So you've all touched on the fact that you work on a team, but you're working with students individually. Does anyone want to talk a little bit about their team and what it's made up of and how you work together and the roles you have?
So I can speak on that a little bit because my role is a little bit different. Because I'm a team leader, I'm just a little bit more removed from working with the students directly, like I was doing last year. So this year, because I'm leading a team, I work in a high school where we are in the 9th and 10th grade. And I actually have a co-team leader because the team within the school is a little bit larger than the average size teams for our site. So I actually lead the team that works in the 9th grade, and my co works in the 10th grade. They try to keep it as evenly split, but it doesn't always work out that way. So I kind of manage a larger part of the team because the 10th grade is still a little bit more new, and there's not as many core members to man that grade yet. But on a regular, I'm just there to support the AmeriCorps members through that process, since I've already gone through it. So just making sure they have resources, I'm observing, I'm checking in with them, I'm talking to teachers and administration and staff. um, making sure that they know who to go to, making sure I'm letting my impact manager know what's going on. Basically, I'm the one that's on the ground level who's there consistently for the core members, while the impact manager as a manager and liaison with more on the administrative side and talking to the principals and the staff members and things like that. So I'm a direct support for the AmeriCorps members on a daily basis and just making sure they have everything that they need.
I think I think one of the really cool things about having a team is just knowing that you just have some sort of structure and backbone in some sort of family to come back to that's present there. Um, sometimes city year can be very tiring and very draining, and I think having a group of people that are, of your same age and of your same kind of, place in life, everybody in city year is relatively the same age. And having a group like that that you can really come and talk to and voice concerns or voice your joys or voice, whatever. I think it's very important, and I really appreciate my team so much. Not saying we don't butt heads. We are all very different people. And we all work very differently. But at the end of the day, we know that we all have each other's back and that we're here and we are each other's support system. And that we're not alone in the environment we serve. Having a team of your peers is very, very important, and it is very, very beneficial, at least to my experience.
So one of the questions we had was, do you feel overwhelmed with your schedules? And we talked about long hours, but also how do you feel supported?
I can mention a little bit about that. So during the beginning, I definitely felt overwhelmed, and I expressed that to my manager, and she understood. And she gave me, some advice on how to, balance that work life schedule. So some of the things that I did was, we are allowed a certain amount of personal days, so you can take like a personal day and relax. You can also talk to friends and express your feelings that's outside of city year. Um, Definitely realizing when you're overwhelmed is important, and not and realizing that and like taking action. It's okay to be overwhelmed, and also knowing that as well, and being willing to express that to either your teammates or your manager is very important and helpful.
I could also add to that as well. I think that, like you said, at the beginning of the year, it can be very, very overwhelming because we do work very long days. And also, as you begin to build relationships with your students, you can get very invested. So sometimes it's hard to pull away because you think you're gonna miss something, or you're gonna misstep, or think that you're not able to, that you're not gonna be able to help them if you're not like there every step of the way. But like Jeff said, I think it's very important to recognize when you get overwhelmed, because self-care in this position is very, very, very important. Um, so where you feel like you're not supported, like don't be afraid to go to your impact manager or your team leader and talk to them about it. Have discussions with your team member on how you can create that self-care space, like within your school community, within your team, even at home. Like if you have roommates that do city, or even ones that don't, just kind of like the people that surround you or that you build those relationships with outside of your students or outside of your team, just making sure that they can check you and that you can check yourself on those moments where you do feel overwhelmed, and that you're I don't know, City Year does provide some opportunities as well. Like they try to give us like team days where like you spend time with your team like outside of the school. They give us events and things like that. And appreciations for us specifically, because they do know that the work that we do can be overwhelming and can be hard. So just recognizing that like self-care in this job is very, very important, and just making sure that where you don't feel supported, like reach out to people and don't be afraid to talk about that.
So on self-care, does everyone want to share what they do for self-care? Or Kelsey, if you wanted to add to what Melissa
Well,
said, feel free.
no, I was just gonna add to Melissa. I think reaching out to people is key, and especially like outside of city or at your own school. I mean, there are teachers there. You know, I call me and one of my teammates call this one teacher our Johnson mother. You know, that she's a teacher that just kind of like we go to just talk about stuff. And that just happened because I just introduced myself one day and we just would strike up conversations. And that's like an odd way to like, that's a weird thing to call it. And that sounded really weird. But like, it's something that it's like a bond that we've grown over the year that just happened just because, me and one of my teammates said hi to her and just walked in her room at the end of the day and talked to her, and that's grown that relationship. And, like that's become a support system for, not only myself and my teammate, but also for her, because she tells us a lot of things as well. I just, meeting people around your school that aren't city or also can also be a very vital support system.
Um, some of the things that I do for self-care, definitely, I have a real close relationship with my brother. So, hanging out with my brother would be one. Summertime, well, not the summer, well, the beginning, I might go fishing, hiking, exercise, Netflix, movies, just eating. I mean, a list. It's a pretty long list. But yeah, so some of the things that I do with self-care and just also knowing, what makes you happy, and using that to your advantage.
Self-care is like my favorite topic. um, so I think a big rule is that if you live with other city year folks, make sure that when you come home, you're not talking about city year. Because when you get home, you want to make sure that your life isn't 24/7 revolving around your work. And I think that's really big is if you live with other city year core members, is almost make like a house or apartment rule that you talk about something else when you get home, or you'll never get out of the city year mindset. And also, if you're coming to DC, museums here are all free. So go to museums on the weekends, take a walk around the National Mall, separate yourself a little bit from your work and take time to yourself. If you like food like me, which is all I ever can think about, City Year gives a really good, like usually on the Facebook page or during BTA, they'll give lists of like affordable restaurants to go and try or really great hikes in the area. And people will usually set out like people with cars will say like, oh, I'm going here this weekend to go on a hike. So take advantage of those opportunities and really remember to take time for yourself.
And one final question about service. What kind of after-school programs have you been a part of or even initiated at your schools? And what does the after-school space look like?
I can speak a little bit about that. Um, so, as I mentioned before, I'm a part of the robotics club, and it was piloted this year, which was very scary for me. But again, mentioning how I was like open to new ideas, I wanted to, absorb every opportunity I could. So I decided to lead the robotics club. It was something that I never, did. I never out for, but I couldn't pick. I never pictured myself leading a robotics club. I definitely did receive support. Me and my manager went to other schools to see how their robotic clubs looked. So just a general picture about how the after school space looks once, especially in the high school space. Sometimes the numbers are low, sometimes the numbers are extremely high. Depends on where you're at in the marketing period and how interested the kids are for the club. So I get about a 20 to 30 minute break from the last bell to start the club. Um, we go to a separate room and we have our meetings and we build and work on our robots. Um, Also in my school, when creating that after school space before, picking the clubs, we sent out surveys to the students to make sure that we had after school clubs that they enjoyed and that they were interested in. So we would have like a high attendance. So there's definitely like different clubs in the after school space. On my team, I just run the robotics club, but we also have the movie club, the healthy fitness club, and a cooking club, which certain kids come to on a regular basis, and here and there you have those frequent, well, surprising guests that you have to prepare for as well.
Anyone else want to touch on after school space?
I can add a little bit. You want to go, Kelsey? Oh, okay. So I was gonna say, in our space, high school can look very different than sites that are in elementary schools. They do have programs at our school from others, different companies that have after school programs. So gauging interest of the students is like Jeff said, is super important in figuring out what they want to do. Because in high school space, it can be a lot harder to get kids to want to stay. So they didn't have an SAT prep club, so we made that available for students. And it's not just the students that we work with, but then other students within the school, like grades that we don't work with. So that gives them an opportunity to come like get resources from us, and that we can get to know a lot more of the student body. We also have the video game club. Their favorite in that is so that ranges from like card games from like Yu-Gi-Oh, and like learning speed to Connect Four or Dance Dance Revolution. Like there are some people who donate TVs and like gaming systems for them to play on. And we are also starting a health and fitness club as well. So yeah, that's a little bit about what we do.
So we are about 13 minutes left with it. So we're going to just go in a little bit about post-service. So I'll ask Chloe, what made you decide to come back for a second year?
There it goes. Okay. So I just felt like my service wasn't done. And I think that's kind of the typical response for most second year or senior corps members is what they call us. It's just that feeling of I just want to do a little bit more. And that's how I felt. I am a learning and development project leader, which is unique to Washington, D.C. So I work with a bunch of different schools at the Washington, D.C. site, and I help develop basic training academy. So I'm like a mini trainer that comes to each school and gives corps members what they need. But I was really excited about the position and the idea that I could work with corps members and give them the best experience possible. Because as a corps member, if you're happy and you're supported, that will pass down to your students as well. And then it also lets you build professional skills. And I think that's something we haven't touched on yet, is that City Year gives you a multitude of professional skills. Before I came into City Year, I'd never really led a team, and City Year gives you a lot of peer management and project management experience. There's also ample opportunities to work with the development teams in City Year and enhance your public speaking skills and your networking skills. And especially if you're moving to another city, it's a really great way to build a network. And I would never have been able to find future employment like I have after City Year without this experience here. So don't think just that you're kind of giving just like a gap year that might just not lead to something. Almost all of the skills you learn in City Year are transferable, and it will beef up your resume before going into a career.
So do you think, how has City Year helped you with those next steps after service?
Is this one for me or for anyone?
Or anyone.
Okay.
You can go, you can share that.
Okay, great. So next year I'm working for the Department of Justice. And so I moved to DC wanting a government job. And it, like I said, like I think the biggest things with City Year that I learned and could highlight were public speaking opportunities. I got involved a lot with extracurriculars in City Year, and I won't overwhelm you with that now, but you'll hear all about them when you join and different ways you can get involved beyond the classroom. Um, so those skills really were great. And also learning how to communicate with different types of people and from different walks of life is huge. And learning how to balance and change your communication style and to work with people who are often different than you or you've never worked with before is great. And I think that's something that all employers, no matter what you want to do when you're done with City Year, are looking for is people who are flexible and adaptable.
So right now we're going to hop into a couple of the questions that we got from our participants. So one is food stamps. How have folks utilized food stamps? How was it a difficult process? And just a tip that you have.
I can touch on that.
Okay. Me and you, Melissa, we're just go ahead.
Great minds. But I was gonna say I feel like City of Philadelphia made the process super easy. They actually had an association that partners with the food stamp in Philadelphia. Actually come in. They have people come in. They have a hotline that you could call. And I think the biggest tip is do not put your stipend in as income. So they actually give you a letter from City Year to give to the food stamp, to give to them to let them know that the money that you're receiving is a stipend, and they have people to help walk you through the process to make sure that if it's something that you want to do or something that you need, that they make sure that you receive as much as you possibly can for the money that we're receiving, because it does not count as income. Even though it is taxed, it's not income. So when you put that in, that actually helps you receive more food stamps so that you're able to get as much as possible so you can be able to get the food that you need for that month.
The City Year will give you the training, follow the directions, right? And ask questions. I think that's one. How has everyone utilized public transportation, and about how long is your commute to service?
I'll touch on that. My commute I've timed is 1 hour and 15 minutes. That's going to the station, taking the train, and then walking, which sounds really daunting, but actually, like, it's not as bad as you might think when you hear 1 hour and 15 minutes. It's really not that bad. And I also saw the question asked about how do you navigate the transportation. At least in DC, they have a really great app. The DC Metro, it's called WMATA, WMATA. That app is really, really great for helping you navigate through the city using their public transportation. I highly recommend that. And I also recommend Google Maps. Google Maps will tell you exactly what bus to take and exactly where to get off. You'd be surprised how much Google Maps actually helps you with public transportation.
I can answer too. So this is DC as well, but my commute last year was about 1 hour and 10 minutes as well, because I was coming from Maryland, which is like, I was coming from the part of Maryland that's north of DC, and then I was going all the way to southeast. And that included my walking time to the metro, getting on the metro, a transfer on the metro, and then getting on a bus to go to my school from there. If you are serving in Washington, D.C., almost all of the schools that we serve in are in Southeast. So know that when you're looking for housing. So that's a good tip I would give. But it was pretty easy to navigate. Public transportation in D.C., even though it gets a bad rap for once in a while, maybe catching on fire, it's pretty great. I've never had an issue with it. And it's a great time if you're a reader to catch up on a book. To listen to some great podcasts if you're a podcast person, or even just get mentally ready for your day.
As far as public transportation in Philly goes, Philly, as you know, is like a really big city, and we have schools kind of placed all around the city. But I would say that we have a really pretty thorough public transportation system, from trains to buses, and even like regional rail lines that kind of go to like the outer lying suburbs, and the Norristown high-speed line going 69th Street on the suburbs on the other end of the city. They're pretty well regulated. They're also connected to Google Maps, and they also have an app, the SEPTA app. And also this site also has a partnership with the public transportation in our city, which is SEPTA. So we actually receive like free passes and appreciations and perks for being a part of City Year. So that also makes it a lot easier. So you're not coming out of pocket to pay for your transportation as well. So that also.
So if there are any questions that we didn't get to, I will do my best to follow up with them. For all of our folks that are listening, please, if you have specific questions that weren't answered today, you can reach out to me. Everyone has my contact information, acrutoff@cityyear.org, or you can reach out to your recruiter or your admissions point person. So as we close today, tomorrow, April 13th, 2018 is our next application deadline. So if you've not submitted your application, we hope we've given you some more information to get more prepared to submit those applications. So I'm going to ask each of our AmeriCorps members to just give 2 or 3 words of wisdoms or 2 or 3 sentences to share with someone who is thinking about serving with City Year, and just a little pep talk.
You should just do it and submit the application. One of the great things about City Year is that it's been one of the most rewarding experiences I've had. You're helping, people younger than yourself grow themselves more than they think they can grow themselves. And when you see like the light in their eyes, or like the smile that they get when they've learned something new, or when they've, achieved something that they didn't think they could, or what have you, it really is just a great experience. Not only are you impacting them, but you're also impacting yourself, and you mold and you change so much throughout the year. I'm so much different than I was when I got here in July. It really is an awesome experience, and I've had a blast with it. So I think, y'all should, submit that application, press that button.
So yeah, definitely, like Kelsey said, just do it. That feeling when you've seen the progress of the students that you're working with. Not only are you teaching them, but they're teaching you things as well. The professional skills that you develop in City Year, and the platform that City Year has that allows you to, increase those leadership skills, communication skills, and just all around professional skills is much, which is much needed to go into the workplace. And they support you along the way. That's the big thing. City Year offers a lot of support and learning advice. If you're up for the challenge, I feel like anyone can do the service. You just have to be willing to do it. So that's the greatest thing about City Year.
I can go. I'm going to say that nothing worth having ever comes easy. That's the biggest thing I learned here. I think that going in, like Chloe said, this job is hard. The hours are long. You're coming up against a lot. But these kids go through a lot more than we think. And we're not here to save them, but you can see the impact that you make just by being genuine and building relationships with these kids and helping them understand that there are opportunities beyond what's in front of them. just that in itself, and just having that, being genuine and being honest with them, and showing them that they have these opportunities is a bigger impact than people will ever know. And like I said, we're not here to save anyone. It's going to be hard, but you will see that it's going to be worth it at the end of your year, because you're going to see the difference that you make in their lives, and also like the difference they make in yours, because you learn just as much from them as they learn from you.
Quadruple tap on everything that everyone has already said. The more the merrier. Honestly, when it comes to service, the more people we can give our students another friendly face to rely on every day is great. And like, if you look back to when you were a kid, wouldn't it have been great to see someone in a red jacket who really cared about your well-being every day? And you get to be that person. And that's something really special and rewarding that you'll never probably get to see in another career. Um, and so when you're thinking tonight of like writing those essays, there's just a couple of them. You can do it. You all have what you have in you to be an impactful AmeriCorps member. Double check that everything's grammatically correct and hit submit, and you'll be ready to go. And I promise it'll be probably one of the best years of your life. I know it's been mine.
Or 2 years if you choose to serve a second year, like all of you. So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to Chloe, Melissa, Jeff, and Kelsey for adding another hour onto their already long days. We in the recruitment and admissions team thank you for your service, as well as for helping us today. I think all of you touched on those professional development opportunities, and this is another way of sharing those professional development opportunities, those unique pieces that you get with City Year. So thank you all for coming. Again, if you have questions, you can shoot them to me directly, and I will be sharing the link out tomorrow, so you can rewatch this panel for your self-care or your entertainment. So thank you all for coming, and have a great night.